welcome to Play with the World. I am Shannon Kaiser, your host, your guide, your support, the author of many, many books, including Return to You. This book came out just a couple years ago, 11 Spiritual Lessons for Unshakable Inner Peace. And I have a lesson I'm going to share with you today out of that book because I'm seeing in my coaching practice a lot of this theme, and also out in the world, out in the collective, a lot of people going through this. And then in my own personal life, sometimes things happen and it can feel very overwhelming. There's a lot of energy and there's a lot of things that happen in life, and it just feels like it's so hard to get ahead. And we're trying and we feel overwhelmed. And it's like, when can I have a break? And there's this kind of process where it's just we get stuck in the routine, or we get stuck in feeling like we're never going to get to that place we feel like we're trying to get to. That's been the theme. I wonder if you can relate. If so, then you'll love today's episode, because I'm going to talk to you about a small shift that you can make to shift out of that energy, but also to give yourself permission to kind of step into an empowerment place to get your life back into a place where you feel empowered. Now, everything that I do really comes back into this kind of vortex of really in the space of mental health, wellness, and spirituality, where all of those intersect is where my work lives, is where I live, where I thrive, where I am constantly showing up every single day. And so I also have times where my mood will go down, and I'm starting to understand with the depression that comes in and out, it's more or less this idea of working with energy, but knowing that my wellness practice helps, my spirituality helps, and then why is what's happening. And so more recently, I've gone through some really traumatic events and some really radical life changes. Me personally, if you've been here on Play with the World, then you know you've been part of my journey. And if you're new here, welcome. I'm not going to get into the whole story, but I will share in a nutshell, in the highlights, just over the past just 2 years, even in it, I've moved to a whole nother country. And within that time span, even right before, I was overcoming a really traumatic, intense breakup from a very emotionally turbulent relationship with a really incredibly painful, emotionally abusive, toxic dynamic. And once I got to Mexico, I befriended someone who I didn't know at the time was a professional con artist who faked the entire friendship. And many of the friends that I had there were part of the community of friends with that person. So when the person pulled the con, I kind of lost a whole community of friends, but they weren't really friends if they were really kind of more connected to the person who was a master manipulator. And then on top of that, there was a hurricane, which is a major life traumatic event. To my dog was living in Mexico who experienced that. And then the building that I lived in was robbed, and the burglars came to my door and knocked on it. And if my dog didn't bark and chase them away, they probably would have come in. And if my dog wasn't there, I saw face to face the burglars. Those are traumatic things. And I'm not trying to trivialize or be a victim. I'm just saying that's a lot. And then on top of that, my dog lost mobility in his legs and he couldn't walk for 6 weeks. He was completely paraplegic. And I had to become a full-time caretaker. And it took everything I had to save his life. I'm smiling because it took a part of me that I didn't even know I had. And now that I'm on the other side of it, I want to thank you if you have participated and been there along the journey, in your prayers and your support and your messages. And I started a GoFundMe, and your financial support has been so helpful. But we go through these things, and I don't want to say so we can learn what we're made of, because that just sounds so trite. But we go through experiences. It's to really kind of go into a deeper part of an awareness, because I am now living on a whole nother level that I never even knew was possible. I'm more present in my life. I didn't even know what being so full of self-love meant, meaning now I have more self-worth, self-respect, and self-value. I thought I had self-love because I wrote a book called The Self-Love Experiment, and I really thought I knew self-love, but there's now a whole new layer. When you show up so fiercely and go through such turbulence and traumatic events, you learn what you're really made of, but on top of that, you learn what you really stand for. And so I stand here today with this whole new perspective on life. And when I was writing the book, Return to You, there was this process that I started to write about, and I understood it. But embodying a concept is very different than kind of knowing it and kind of being up here logical about it. So when we know something, it's in this mindset of, I know that's true, but how do we feel it? How do we embody it? How do we truly live with it? So, this idea of victim consciousness, I'm going to read this. If you have the book, it's on page 50, but this is also very much kind of inspired by um, actually Azrya Cohen Bequer writes this. I probably totally pronounced her last name wrong. It's Bequer. So it's Bequer. Bequer. Anyways, she breaks it down in this very unique way. But this victim consciousness is something that a lot of us are carrying around and we don't even realize. We're looking out on the world and we're seeing the world through a specific lens. And this lens is it's this idea of giving away our personal power. I have no power, or I have very little personal power. I am at the whim of my external reality, and things are happening way beyond my own personal control. My fear-based ego clings to any semblance of control it can find in order to find survival, and it fights for the control at all costs. I project blame externally. I refuse to take responsibility for my reality. And this is a lot of times what we don't even realize we're living through. But there's this other idea of creator consciousness. And creator consciousness is this concept of embodying what is truth, what is the true divine spark that lives within us. The creator consciousness is, I am infinitely powerful, precisely because I am ready to relinquish my false sense of control, and I trust in the greater intelligence of life and death itself. Everything I experience, pleasant or not, is actually a result of some form of conscious or subconscious co-creation. It is through taking full responsibility for my experiences that I liberate myself from victimhood. Because the truth is, we are manifestors. All of us, we can be master manifestors when we so fully stand in the truth that we embody our own experiences, and what we are going through is important. And there's this idea that what you are going through is not in vain. So, whatever you're experiencing right now, recognize that there is probably a reason, and we can hook to it and we can resist it and we can say, it's always happening, or we can shift into the perspective of there's something bigger here. And I just posted on my Instagram this morning something that I'm pulling up right now. It's kind of a makeshift video here. I had an outline and I'm totally going off outline, but it's this idea: your most repeated pattern is the biggest soul lesson in your lifetime. And this is from Healing Solutions. She wrote that. And so if you think about something that's really happening in your life that's going over, the biggest frustration that over and over you keep coming back to, this is where your soul is asking you to embody more. This is where you're being asked to really rise and go deeper into this aspect. And as Corey says, it's Corey Mascara, pretend that your most frustrating pattern is actually a lesson your soul chose to work on in this life. You can just ask, what is it trying to help you see and develop? So in that experience, your soul is growing, you are healing. And maybe we can just have a perspective of being in that creator consciousness. And the creator consciousness energy has this empowerment built into it that I am in charge of my reality. And if I don't like the reality I'm living, I get to choose how I want to participate in this reality and shift. And I shift by changing my focus, my beliefs, and my behaviors, and my patterns will shift. And then you can bounce out of the reality that is causing you stress, causing you pain. So try this out. I'd love to hear how it works. It's radically changed my life, and I was able to make it through these very turbulent events, one after another, by shifting from that victim consciousness into creator consciousness. Sending you a lot of love and energetic hugs on your path, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you for playing with the world.